Sorry. Good morning, Loveys. She was definitely muted, but that was a record recovery. Welcome to the shit show that is Nurse Kim's house on a Saturday morning. It is May 31st, 2025. And what are we? Alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic. Woo! I got a boo-boo minutes ago. Okay? Luckily, I'm a nurse. Fixed it. Okay? I've got band-aids of all different shapes and sizes at the ready. A little bacitracin for a girl who, when she's cutting up apples, has been known to shear her own hand. Okay? I do it with potatoes too, every time. I'm peeling myself. It's questionable at best. But good morning. Good morning, Mama Bear. And good morning to Billy Marie. And Eclectic Justice is here as well. I'm obsessed. How are we? You're not late. And Skaggs, I just arrived. Look at us. Similar time frames. That's what we do. Heather M also has a blue Band-Aid. She's ready to rock and roll. So I decided yesterday to take a moment to collect my thoughts after seeing Hank Brennan behaving in ways that only one would if they were a defense attorney. You are not Adam Lallying this, right? You are not what if anythinging me. You are speaking to an EDR expert on day one of the defense, case in chief, and telling him that he is not smart and pretty. Okay? It's rude. And I knew he had a bag of tricks. You want to know why? Because I saw it. I saw it when he treated Dr. Marie Russell like she was a piece of garbage. And you don't do that. You don't do that to experts. What are the experts doing? You didn't hear Attorney Alessi, eviscerating one Judson B. Welcher, who liked to tell us this little fact, a factoid about himself.
But what happens when I spread my load out, when I lay on my bed like this?
No one called you out on that. Not even Judge Cannone. So maybe one Hank Brennan could reload his shotgun, okay? And keep the load inside, okay? Do an internal load. Keep it there where it belongs and go to therapy. Because you seem mean and disgruntled. And it's not a good look for the Commonwealth, if you ask me. So we have Matthew DiSogra. DiSogra, pardon me. He's the EDR expert for the defense. He comes in. He is cool, calm, collected. He is not an argumentative human being. He's just trying to say, hey, this is the reports I looked at of all of your experts. And I did arithmetic. I hit him up with a T90 calculator from Texas Instrument, and I said, facts matter, mathematicians. And I can't find a correlation between what Shanman Burgess said and what actually is pictured on your incredibly busy PowerPoints. Now, anyone who watched days 20 through 23 with me, you know those PowerPoints were difficult. They're hard to look at. They give you a migraine. They feel very busy. Keep it simple, stupid, right? That's the way to go. But also have like more appropriate visual aids instead of looking like we did it in what? Our third grade classrooms with Mrs. Rice when we're learning about plant photosynthesis. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was overwhelmed. And did I understand anything that he was trying to express other than he wanted to argue till the end of time that he was right and he cosplayed as Officer John O'Keefe and wore his same shirt. He also what? Wore the same jeans. He was 220 pounds at the time. I'm 6'2" and a half. And this is why he also, oops.
But what happens when I spread my load out, when I lay on my bed like this?
Oh, yeah. We got you. We clocked it. Jury clocked it. So let's take a minute together. Let's say we're thankful for a Saturday. We need Saturdays. We need weekends because we too are like Judge Beverly Cannoni. Would I like to be knee deep in clams down the Cape? Yeah, sure would. Am I? No, I'm not. But I'm knee deep in YouTube with my best friends from out of town, and I'll take it. Okay, I did want to say to this because this has been something that was very exciting or heard of in Erie Marie or Erie Raven. I don't know how I just heard Marie, but DiSogra didn't need 2 laptops or a calculator. He didn't, babe. And thank you for being here for 7 months. And JPC, new member at the house, whoop, consensually. I live for it. I did see that somebody asked what face I was making at Mr. Yannetti, though, yesterday. Oh. I wasn't in court yesterday, Loveys, but there was a lovely, pretty blonde in the back, and she was all of us. I love that you thought it was me, but there would never be a time that I would be making faces. You wanna know why? Because I'm afraid. I have fear-based reactions in this trial. When I have gone to court, I have been told strictly to fix my fucking face. Make sure that you don't look in like you don't want to be looking at the jury too long. You don't want to be looking at the O'Keefe family. Like you don't want to be distracting because if so, the court officers can give you a wallop or send you out. I want to stay. My goal is to be there. So what I do is I try to look forward. Sometimes I do a smirk. If Mr. Yannetti, my bowl of spaghetti, is making an argument that I am just, woohoo, I'm feeling feelings over, I might do a smirk. I might go like this. I might raise an eyebrow, but I'm not leaning. And I want to know who she is because she is an icon, but couldn't be me. Because, again, I'm afraid of what the principal would say. I don't want to be on a do not return list. I'd like to be back next week if possible. So I am clutching my pearls with you, Loveys. We are clenching our butts and we are going to get into day 24, Commonwealth v. KarenRead. May the force be with you and also with you. Tiny baby, nope, tiny Jesus and tiny Mary are with us always. And we shall go. Okay, Rock'em Arm says, Hank is a bully. Felt like it. Feels like it. And what I will say with that right before we get started, babes, is that remember that this jury is young. They skew younger than who? My old ass. Okay? Might be 39. There is one that I believe is in his teens. He is a teen. He probably just graduated from high school and he got a jury summons. He took a year off, right? He wanted to go backpack, in my mind, in Europe. Okay. Unfortunately, plans fell through. So when he went to Norfolk County to the courthouse, he was like, I don't have any plans this summer. And they said, you're on the jury. He couldn't get out of it. He didn't know. So we've got him, a child, he's an actual infant, okay? He listened to Yo Gabba Gabba, okay? And what happened with the rest of them is like, I think maybe my age would be maybe median age, right? Because if there's maybe 5 or 6 that I believe are in their 40s, majority in 30s, a couple of 20s, and maybe one is in their 50s. But there is no one that is our Nana Phyllis, right? There is no one that is our Grampy Steve. We're sitting here and we are watching a jury that skews young. And what do young people and Gen Z, like millennials, I think we were the last of Mean Girls, right? That like we thought of like not class, but like caste systems. Like you had the skateboarders, you had the potheads, you had the jocks, you had the mean girls, you had preppies. We had all of those people. But today, Gen Z doesn't fuck around. And they don't like that. They also have a distrust, in my opinion, with the police and with the government that was not present for Gen X. Well, granted, Gen X and millennials, we agree. And we're like, But like baby boomers and the greatest generation, they didn't ever think that there was impropriety. And what the police said was Bible. So I don't know if this was the best call that was made by the Commonwealth to allow such a young jury, in my opinion. Oh. The majority of TikTok 30s are FKR. Kim Robinson, I love to hear that. And Kat, I love you right back. Okay. So get off your soapbox, bitch. That's me. And we are going to meet somebody put on Twitter to me, they said, does he remind you of a young Mr. Betterow? Oh, now I can't unsee it. And I love it. Okay. Stop being weird.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Morning.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. DiSogra, could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the jurors, please?
Sure. Matthew DiSogra, last name DiSogra.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I am a licensed professional engineer. I practice in the field of accident reconstruction.
Love it.
And within that field, I specialize in analysis, interpretation, and accessing all types of vehicle data.
How are you currently employed?
I'm employed by Delta V Forensic Engineering, which is an engineering firm that specializes in accident reconstruction, all parts of accident reconstruction.
Tell us a little bit more about Delta V. What is it? What kind of company is it? Other than that specialty, what else does it do?
So accident reconstruction is a broad field. There are a lot of subspecialties within that. So accident reconstruction is everything from the initial investigation phases of a crash all the way through testimony, like here today. Some of the specialties within that could be things like biomechanics, could be human factors, and my specialty is data, vehicle data, and event data recorders.
Staying on that topic, what is your current title or position with Delta V?
I am the Director of Engineering for our EDR services line.
What does EDR services mean?
So, event data recorders. So EDR is a general term we can use to talk about all types of data from all types of vehicles.
And how would you describe your role as the Director of Engineering for EDR services for Delta V?
I wear a couple of different hats. First and foremost, I'm still a practicing engineer. I still conduct investigations. I still perform analyses, and I testify. On top of that, in the director role, I oversee a group. It's not just me doing this kind of work. I have 3 other engineers that work with me, all specializing in EDRs. So I oversee that group and focus on kind of the day-to-day operations as well as the direction we're going. With things like autonomous vehicles coming, the role of data is growing. So we're kind of looking to the future in a lot of those ways.
As a consulting engineer, you've indicated what your specialization is. Do you specialize in motor vehicle accident reconstruction as well as vehicle system analyses?
Okay. And let's give it up for a sharp dress man. Oh, AJ, looking like a dime. All right, for a Friday, I'm into it.
I began my career at Delta V doing traditional accident reconstruction in the broadest sense. And as I have progressed, I have sort of narrowed myself down and now specialize in that. But I still consider myself an expert in accident reconstruction.
Oh, and the Victorian child, or our childlike empress, aka the appellate lawyer for the Commonwealth, is there as a tiny pale statue and hoping not to pass away from pneumonia this winter.
Because
And-
ultimately, sorry.
No, please finish.
Ultimately, anytime we're doing EDR data analysis, it is in support of an accident reconstruction.
You talked about event data recorders. Do you also engage in the specialty of advanced data recovery methods? In other words, methods of pulling the data. It's one thing to have it sitting in a car. It's another thing to pull it out and make it useful, correct?
That's right. There are a lot of different ways data can be accessed, all the way from just plugging into a port on a working vehicle, all the way through when a vehicle is catastrophically damaged and even the modules themselves are damaged, accessing the data at the chip level. So no matter what condition a vehicle or the remnants of a vehicle are in, generally we can still get the data from that.
Do you have any specific knowledge about Toyota data?
I do.
Describe that for us.
Beyond Toyota being a common vehicle in general, so we run into that data quite frequently. Just this year, we published a paper specifically studying some of the behaviors of the additional data recorder that's in Toyota vehicles.
Does Toyota make another sub-brand, for lack of a better phrase?
Lexus, I believe you're.
So Lexus is a Toyota brand.
Meatball Morrissey's Sketty Stain. He looks like Sid from Toy Story. Chat, I'm obsessed with you. Okay? You are the best in the business. Love your faces.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. What is infotainment? It's kind of a combination of a couple of words, information and entertainment. What is infotainment data as it relates to vehicles, modern vehicles?
So that's it. It's a generic term, which more or less means the thing that's in the middle of the dashboard with the screen on it. A lot of manufacturers implement that a little bit differently, so they all look different, but it's a general term we use in the industry to describe that system.
Welcome
And what about, I'm
home.
going to change gears a little bit. What about your experience with regard to GPS as it relates to vehicles on the road, on the common roadways of the country?
GPS is a pretty fundamental part of vehicle data as a whole at this point, and we run into it in a lot of different places. We see GPS data from infotainment systems, so we're analyzing that data. Most of that's GPS based. I do a lot of heavy truck work, and almost every heavy truck has some kind of GPS system in it for the fleets to track them. So we're analyzing that as part of data. And then the last area would be when we conduct testing, any kind of research, we're generally going to put our own GPS systems on vehicles so we can study that data. So analyzing GPS is a regular part of my job.
GPS, global, I'm going by memory, global positioning satellites?
Global positioning system.
System, got it.
I
GPS
love
is
it.
a mechanism to figure out where on earth a certain item might be, whether it's this pin or an 18-wheel tractor trailer, correct?
So, babes, I just wanted to go through this with us so that we know what Mr. DiSogra, his background is, because sometimes I don't like how the Commonwealth does this, right? They will just get into the questions and then at some random point be like, what is your education, training, and experience? So for AJ and for the defense team, how they typically do it is they're like, hey, what do you do? What is your role? And then they'll talk about his education. And then as soon as we're done that, we're going to get into parts that we're very interested in.
That's correct.
Is there any difference inherently in the GPS mechanism that's installed in an infotainment center in a Toyota/Lexus, versus a heavy truck or heavy vehicle that's on the road?
The core technology behind how it works is fundamentally the same.
What is instrumented testing as it relates to Toyotas and VCH testing and things of that nature? Can you explain that for the jurors?
Sure. What instrumented testing means is, let's say we want to study, let's say how accurate some data is that comes out of one of these vehicles. So we need an independent source of that information. So what we'll do is we'll equip a vehicle with one of these GPS data acquisition systems.
Yeah.
Basically, we can drive the vehicle around and we know exactly where it is, how fast it's going, all these parameters. We can do some maneuvers with the vehicle. Then we can download the data that the vehicle stored, and now we can compare the two and say, okay, well, if we have really high confidence in our system, how accurate is the vehicle system? Because the reality is there's always some small errors in these vehicle systems. And in a lot of cases, what's important is quantifying that error.
So you're obviously familiar with GPS systems in many different platforms.
That's correct.
Okay. How many cases have you been a part of in terms of investigating and or analyzing infotainment center or infotainment system data?
Infotainment specifically, probably around 30.
And are you also familiar with engaging in some sort of analysis that's referred to as clock alignment?
Yes.
What is clock alignment?
Clock alignment would mean that anytime we have a timestamp in any set of data, a singular clock value.
This Hello Awesome says, I think seeing he is younger and speaks clearer, the jury will like him better. When I tell you that I understood what Shannon Burgess did more via this witness and Hank Brennan doing a cross-examination than I actually learned when Manshan was on the stand. I was like, how in the fuck did I just figure out what they were trying to do with a actual defense witness? Because this expert is incredibly clear, babes. This is just absolutely apples and oranges on how they testified and how they were able to explain things. Now, Mr. DiSogra does concede and agree with the Commonwealth on a couple of points that I said, oh, but then, of course, Hank Brennan inserts foot directly into mouth at end of day.
There's a good likelihood that that's not 100% accurate. So clock alignment would mean finding an independent source of time to compare that to, preferably one that's more reliable, and then making the necessary adjustments so that time can be considered real time.
How many cases have you been involved in that deal with clock alignment specifically?
Thousands, over 1,000. That's a regular part of data analysis. Any data set that has a timestamp, it's normal. It's part of the analysis. It's really the first step is let's get that clock aligned. So it's something I'm doing regularly.
And how long have you worked for Delta V?
It'll be my 13-year anniversary next month, actually.
Okay.
Mazel.
These things that you've just described that we've talked about for the last few minutes, these are all duties that you perform within the rubric of your employment as the director of engineering at Delta V, correct?
Correct.
Now let's shift gears real quick and talk about your education, training, and background that qualifies you to perform these duties that you just talked about.
Incredible.
Go ahead.
Oh,
the road is open and it's yours.
Certainly. So I began my academic career. I got an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I then went on and got a master's degree also in mechanical engineering from the same school. And then when I came out of school, I immediately started working for Delta V Forensic Engineering. In order to get a professional engineer license, I then needed to acquire 4 additional years of work directly under the supervision of another licensed engineer. So then I completed that phase of work. And then in order to maintain my license, I have to complete continuing education every year in the field that I practice.
You got both a Bachelor of Science, correct?
Correct, Bachelor of Science.
Did you mention the year that you got your Bachelor of Science?
2011.
And you have a Master's?
Correct.
In engineering?
That is correct.
And when did you secure that degree?
2013.
You just mentioned engaging in continuing education. What is continuing education in terms of the engineering field or the reconstruction field in your world?
So in the state that I'm licensed in North Carolina, they define that really as any activity you're participating in that's keeping you abreast with the field, keeping you up to date with what's going on. So
Carly, keyword, completed his bachelor's in 2011 and completed his master's in 2013. Queen of Snark.
So taking formal classes counts for continuing education, but also some of the other work that I do, like publishing research in peer-reviewed journals, also counts as continuing education.
Do you regularly attend symposiums or symposia, I guess is the right
Yes.
word? Have you attended symposia related to EDR research and training?
He's a teacher.
Yes.
How about advanced applications of heavy vehicle EDR data?
Correct. Yeah, I attend. There's a couple of regular conferences in our industry specifically tailored to EDRs as a whole for passenger vehicles and heavy trucks. I'm a regular attendee of those. I'm also a regular speaker at most of those. And I'm usually presenting some of the new research that we have for that year.
So not only do you attend, you actually teach.
Correct.
I love a teacher. Okay, now we're going to 147.50 because we now know who Mr. DiSogra is and what he brings to the table. He was brought in as an expert in EDR, okay, meaning that teleinformatics system and trigger events inside KarenRead's Lexus vehicle, right? So he knows all the shit. He is the expert of EDR. He reviewed all of the reports, the supplemental reports, and PowerPoints presentations of Aperture LLC, of Judson B. Welcher, and Manshan Burgess.
In the infotainment. So the time we see is basically stale by 3 seconds.
We're all familiar with how computers turn on. When you say key on, do you mean a physical key, or could it be the push button to turn the car on?
In this case, it's a button. I refer to key on because generally that event is considered the key on in vehicle parlance, regardless of whether there's a physical key or it's a push button.
So those 3 seconds mean what? What's the difference between pushing that button and the 3 seconds later that you just described?
It means that when we're trying to...
Oh, Loveys, I'm sorry. We have a special report. Code Red special report. I've just received confirmation. I got a text this morning from one Mr. Mark Betterow, and he said, when, if any time, do you want to talk all the shit? And I said, you're the boss, I'm the horse. You tell me when. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Attorney Betterow is coming to Nurse Kim's house tonight, Loveys. Woohoo!
Use the timestamps that were recovered from the infotainment system that show when the vehicle was keyed on or turned on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just in the spirit of, I am so excited and I just can't hide it.
But what happens when I spread my load out, when I lay on my bed like this?
Stop it. Okay.
That the vehicle was actually or likely turned on 3 seconds before that.
Do you know where the 3-second conclusion came from in Mr. Burgess's report?
That came from the testing that Aperture conducted with the exemplar Lexus that they purchased.
Was there anything in the report that indicated testing, this type of exact testing on Ms. Reed's actual Lexus?
No.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not all Lexuses, at least of this make and model and year, would have the exact same 3-second delay, or could that be different?
It could be different. In their testing, they only tested one exemplar vehicle. So I think there was a solid foundation that the exemplar that was used exhibited this 3-second delay.
Me too,
It
Melanie.
was a very close match in terms of part numbers and software versions to Ms. Reed's Lexus. But without any kind of testing of, let's say, a second vehicle, a second exemplar, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't have any basis to say it must be 3. We could test a second vehicle and it could be 5. So we say, well, there's a delay, but it varies vehicle to vehicle. They could have tested a second vehicle.
I'll allow it, Jim. GM says, party at Kim's. I'm bringing the Jameson and gingers. Oh.
And found it's also 3, and then you start to build some confidence that maybe it is 3 across every vehicle. But with only testing 1 and not testing the subject vehicle, it is difficult to say with absolute certainty it would be 3 seconds.
What is your opinion about best practices with regard to trying to create this gap for purposes of
Best
coming to
practices.
an opinion or an analysis?
So because we don't know whether or not this specifically would apply to Ms. Reed's vehicle, the best way to conduct that analysis would be to do the entire thing with the key switch adjustment at 3 seconds. Because if we're going to use a value, 3 is the most reasonable one because that's the one shown in testing. But we should also do the entire analysis without it in case we feel that that's the most appropriate. So in fact, that's what I do and will show is I ran the analysis both ways, with and without, to be as conservative as possible.
Did your review of Mr. Burgess's report indicate that he ran the analysis both ways?
He did not.
Let's go to slide 7.
And here was the thing that I loved the most is that this specific expert, Loveys, did not try to be disrespectful to the alternate in ways the information was kind of interpreted by Aperture. So he adopted their ways and still found that there were errors. And that is what he made his reports on.
What are we looking at here?
This is an excerpt from Mr. Burgess's original report. His page 28 and his page, there's a screenshot also from his page 30 at the bottom. And this is where he states in that report that when they were doing the testing with the exemplar, they observed across 4 different key-on cycles this 3-second difference. So what I mean by that is they had a video camera in the car that had a timer on it. And so in the video, you can see the button pressed. So in their testing, for example, they pressed the button at 21:48:05, and that's sort of nailed down. When they went back and downloaded the data from the infotainment, the key on was logged in the infotainment as 21:48:08. So there's the 3 seconds. That's where they're getting that from. And that's what he states highlighted in red there. It's a little hard to read, but it basically says the average across 4 runs was 3 seconds.
The 3-second delay, was that actually in his report?
This is the only point in the report it's mentioned.
I guess what I'm asking, it was an artful question. The portion to the left, is that his report or your report?
That is his report. Everything on the left-hand side of the slide comes from Mr. Burgess's report.
So the 3-second delay was noted in his report.
It was noted.
Did he apply the 3 seconds in his analysis?
He did not.
Oh.
Did he indicate in his report why he ignored that 3-second delay?
He did not.
Sustained as to that question.
I'll rephrase it.
Strike the answer.
Did he indicate in his report the reason that he did not apply the 3-second correction?
He did not.
When you do apply the 3-second correction, what do you come up with as it relates to the 26 seconds from the end of the recording?
So the positive 26-second window, if we only apply the 3-second key on, grows to positive 29 seconds.
Positive
If you apply the same 3
29
seconds to
seconds.
the trigger event time, now what does the gap?
That gap would grow to a positive 34 seconds.
Okay. Now, Loveys, if you're saying to yourself, what in the fuck does that mean? That means positive after the end of event 1162-2. So it couldn't have, all the data indicates that Officer John O'Keefe would have locked his phone, all of it, after the alleged time of KarenRead doing the reverse event that they state happened outside of 34 Fairview, right? But again, that does not come from the text stream data. That comes from the infotainment and the running clock. Just a reminder, right? So, and that is an expected finding. We would expect to see date and time on a 2021 Lexus LX 570 with a navigation system. Just saying. It just didn't happen. And for whatever reason, we didn't get it. So long story short, he is saying that every single time you're going to run this, right, it is going to put you to the 30 plus seconds after the alleged event. Okay. But this was the first report before Manchan edited his shit.
Between the trigger event and what?
The phone lock.
Oh, I lied. Not the steps, the phone lock.
In your opinion, was it best practice to not account for that 3-second delay between the on switch and the data coming on?
Sustained, ask you to.
What, in your opinion, would be the best practice in terms of this 3 seconds that was noted in the exemplar vehicle?
The best practice would be to run the analysis with that adjustment included and without that adjustment included.
Yes.
Because like I stated, without testing of an additional vehicle, we really don't know if the 3 seconds is just a specific behavior of that exemplar or if it's representative of all Lexuses of this type.
So here's the thing, is what he is saying is that this test was only done on the exemplar, the $70,000 vehicle that they bought just for shits and gigs to cosplay and dress up like Officer John O'Keefe, do a little Spirit of the Blue Man group, and have a dramatic gay starfish entrance into the courtroom. Okay? It was egregious for all of this testing to occur, and yet you're only deriving the results not back to KarenRead's actual Lexus vehicle, but to the exemplar. And that is where science matters. Now, I am not an engineer, but engineering brains, I know them. I love them. I have one, not that I love, all right? And it's annoying because they're so literal and they have to have data, like, because I think completely different than an engineer thinks, right? They are so strict of like, this is our protocol. This is what we're doing. I have to get to my final conclusions based on not one data set, but it has to be multiple for them to find what they would be clear and convincing data for them to report. I love it.
Let's go to slide 8, please. Tell us what we're looking at in this slide.
So now we're going to get into the next adjustments. That first adjustment we just talked about was really a vehicle-to-vehicle adjustment.
Hi, my dramatic gay starfish. How are you? You are here. Oh, you bring me joy.
We haven't talked about the phone yet. We're going to get into the phone now and talk about aligning that. But we had to get through the internal adjustment that has to get done first. Now we're going to look on the subsequent slides here at all of the different ways the Aperture reports compared the vehicle to Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Is there any additional adjustment that you believe should be made?
The Aperture reports lay out 2 methodologies for adjusting. There is a methodology based on phone calls, and there's a methodology based on the 3-point turn.
And where did you get that information from?
From the Aperture reports.
From the
In Mr. Burgess's
Aperture
original
report.
report on differentiating, the January report, which did he use to determine his determination of the clock skew?
In his initial January report, he never actually takes the calculation to the end by applying the differences in times to the calculated time for 1162-2, but he does do the math, which I'll show, for the differences on these phone calls.
In terms of Dr. Welcher's report, did he identify a GPS point of 154 at all?
Yes.
How did he describe that GPS data point?
He describes in his initial PowerPoint slides as point 154 aligning with the end of vehicle event 1162-1, talking about a different event now. This is the 3-point turn event. So he uses that as an anchor point.
And that anchor point you said was the end of the text stream event, or the end of the recording of that text stream event.
Correct. The Aperture reports consistently reference everything from the end of the events.
Okay, so the turtle just said, so by the CW's theory, JOK was hit at 12:32, rendered unconscious, Dr. Wolf's testimony, and DiSogra proves that the lock happened after 12:32. So how on Alan Jackson's green earth could JOK lock his phone? And the turtle, that's why you are the hero of the turtle we know. And when John DePietro sees you in these streets, he screeches... Listen, turtle. I can't. Whew, exactly.
Let's go to slide 9, please. What are we looking at here?
On the left is an excerpt of page 33 from Mr. Burgess's initial report. And what he shows here is he has identified 7 call logs that exist both in the infotainment from Ms. Reed's Lexus and in Mr. O'Keefe's phone. He puts them in a table form. Then he actually goes on and calculates the difference between those 2 times. So that's what I meant by he sort of does the math. He makes my job a little easier, and the numbers are already there. He just never applies these to any of the times. So that's where I step in and say, if I take that 3rd column that he lays out, those are in seconds. If I apply those seconds, that adjustment to 12:31:43, where do we end up with John?
John's interaction window becomes positive 28 seconds, meaning after the alleged event. Okay. Now, back here, we're going and we're just looking. Make sure, babes, when you are seeing it's a report by Shannon Burgess, PDF, page 33. Babe, right up here becomes the keystone of Hank Brennan's cross-examination. He goes full throttle. Okay. He does an extreme load shifting. Okay. Spreading his load all over this column. it says infotainment call timestamps. And then the second column is O'Keefe's iPhone call timestamps. Well, babes, come to find out, we have some fuckery afoot. Mary Poppins was up in this bitch and she was looking for a spoonful of sugar. Okay. Because allegedly it was not the infotainment call timestamps. It was the iPhone to iPhone timestamps, which makes a difference in interpretation. But it came from the Commonwealth's report. Mr. DiSogra is only here to review what they provided to the Commonwealth and the defense and provide his analysis of what they did. This is 100% an expert field. Like, they do this all the time in trials. You know that. We'll see a medical examiner, we'll see anyone come in and say, I reviewed what you did and what you worked off of with your reports, right? Because your reports, as in the scientific method, should provide all of the methodology. Well, bitch, if your shit is incorrect, then your report from the Commonwealth is in fact incorrect, not the translation of it from the defense witness. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so now we're rolling. 337.
Information missing and believe that there was missing information from the chips.
Correct.
In that form, it's sustained. It's stricken.
My apologies. The conclusion Mr. Burgess had is that he believed there was missing information from the chips.
He did. He miscalculated the size of chips.
Did you study to see if there was actually information missing from the original download?
No, I looked at the data sheets for the chips and then immediately realized what the error was. The data sheets specify a size in megabits or gigabits. And Mr. Burgess had written his report in the context of megabytes and gigabytes.
And then you asserted, or you took the position in your affidavit, that there should be no further chip off, no further study of those chips, other than to ensure the amount of memory was sufficient.
It's not how I recall specifically what I said.
Well, let me read it, because I don't want to try to malign your words.
Please.
Mr. Burgess proposed protocol labeled "We-Attempt Chip-Off Acquisition
Oh,
Unnecessary."
surely.
The file size of the acquisition performed by Ms. Gaffney already matches the expected memory storage capacity of components.
This is the giggity of it all. Is it the megabits? Is it the gigabits? Is it the, I don't, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat? I don't know. But it was an easy calculation, and Manshan admitted that he was wrong and that he fixed his calculation. But the way Hank is going about this is he's saying, oh, Shannon is a genius, okay? The genius who did not know the kind of base of knowledge when you're regarding data forensics of megabits and gigabits, or bytes and bits, the difference, right? So where he's talking about the chips having additional information, they didn't. It was a little hidden SD card, okay? That no one had that in the scope that they thought it would provide anything to either the Commonwealth or the defense. But that is where Manshannon got the on and off time of the Lexus on January 29th, 2022, that resulted in, oh, Kimberly. Okay. It was, where did he say? Oh gosh, I should have this noted somewhere. Shameful. But I believe it was 12:12 and 12:40 it shut off. KarenRead's Lexus. Okay. I'm going to find the exact one. I apologize, babes. But that was the only thing that really came out from Shannon Burgess's multiple acquisitions of this vehicle and data. None of the chips, they were already at max storage, and everything was found and everything was accounted for prior to his involvement.
That sounds accurate.
If you want to see this, I don't want to read from the document. If you need to see it, actually, just let me know.
That's fine. I trust your reading.
However, an acquisition may be
Don't
conducted
trust
for the
his
sole
reading.
purpose of ensuring the contents of the memory chips have not been altered since the last testing by recording the checksum.
Yes.
Did it cross your mind at that point that there was important data in those modules that was not seen or recovered or obtained by Mr. Yapper?
No.
Did you want to know what his purpose was for more data, more information, what he thought was missing?
He stated, I think in his report or affidavit, I'm not sure what it was, but he stated what he thought was missing was there was a physical size difference. So he thought there was not corrupt data, but just missing chunks of data.
Log on information, you've heard of that. Mission on, mission off information
Yes.
in an infotainment system. That's important information when you're reconstructing an accident, isn't it?
It could be.
Well, you read information in this case. Pretty important in this case. Would you say?
Yes.
Yes.
So you would not
You
want to
would say
complete
that.
process without this pretty important information, would you?
Which process?
Of an accident reconstruction.
Sorry. So can you restate it? The whole question? Yeah. Yeah.
You said you have some experience in accident reconstructions.
Yes.
Don't you want all the data available? More data, the better.
Generally, yes.
You wouldn't want to ignore data on purpose, would you?
No.
I mean, the data analyst, the more data, the more you can look at.
Yes.
And so the power log on information that actually has date and time, that's critical in an accident reconstruction, isn't it?
In some accident reconstructions, in some, there's no debate about when a vehicle was on or off, but if there is, then yes.
Not just on and off. The power log on and off gives you the date and the time that you can match with the texturing data, correct?
Yes, it
Because
does.
you know texturing data itself doesn't have date and time.
It can. This vehicle didn't. It can, but this vehicle did not.
And this had a running time instead, like
That's
a stopwatch.
Correct.
So this data that was not found during the initial process, that was critical data at the time.
I don't think prior to the process, anyone knew that this particular Lexus infotainment system stored those key on and key off times.
Right, the only
No one knew it. No one was looking for it because who the fuck is looking for a random SD card, right? I guess like it's not standard practice. But how Manchan like determined that the acceleration of greater than 30% for KarenRead in that reverse maneuver, babes, is still incorrect to me because there is no time and date stamp with the text stream that is associated with that trigger. And I pray to Tiny Mary and Tiny Jesus that the defense like absolutely hammers that home.
person that found this out was Shannon Burgess.
He found it in the process, but I don't think anybody knew in advance of this case. There was nothing out there about it. So to my knowledge, this is the first time that this specific data has ever been released into the wild.
But it was on the board there, someone who was to look for or got creative, they could maybe find it.
Yes, more so to your if got creative, because I don't think anyone would have been able to have the foreknowledge that there would have definitely been that.
Shannon Burgess did.
Sustain. I'll strike it.
And when Shannon Burgess went to obtain that data that everybody else overlooked
Oh.
or didn't know about, you went with him.
Yes,
So you had a process where he was going to now control the data and take the information that was left behind and remove it from the infotainment board, correct?
he actually never specified anything about the SD card in that initial notice. So it was a departure from his protocol, and it was a little surprising to me when I got there that the protocol was written with a specific focus on a number of other chips, and it became very apparent to me very quickly that the focus was not on those chips, and the focus was on this SD card that had previously been unmentioned. There was
Well, let's talk about some interesting parts of that. You had made an entire protocol. And again, remember, babes, engineering brains. Do we have any engineers within our chat today? Because I'd love to know. But when they make the scope of what they are trying to do and the chips in which they were focused on, right? The SD card was not mentioned. And I found it very interesting that Mr. DiSogra says, hi, I found out very quickly that he wasn't interested in any of the chips. He was only interested in the SD card. Why? Why? That wasn't on your list of shit to do. And also, it is not something that EDR trained forensic human beings are going to be searching and seeking out. I mean, great that they got the information, but I'm gonna guarantee, and shame on me, but I don't believe that Manshan had the foresight to think, let me go and find that SD card. Who told you? Where did you get that tip? Because it's not standard practice.
Nothing in there about that prior to that.
Did it offend you, or were you impressed that he had found that?
I was a little confused because I went into it with an expectation. Generally, if we write a protocol, we adhere to the protocol. If we're going to deviate, we have a discussion about deviations. So I was just surprised. It's not customary to sort of shift out of nowhere. But other than that, I did not know what to think of it because I'd never heard of that.
Did you give any input? Did you have any knowledge about the SD card and how it worked?
No.
So when you watched Mr. Burgess remove the SD card, did you appreciate he'd have to engage in what you call reverse engineering?
He did not elaborate to me exactly what his whole process was at first. It sort of came out as time progressed through the first day in his office in Texas. And then I learned more as we moved to the second testing in Massachusetts. But he didn't explain it to me in one go.
Did you, at that point, understand or appreciate the relevance of the SD card relative to the infotainment system?
No.
As far as the amount of information that could then be available?
He never spoke throughout the 3 days at all about what kind of data he expected from the card or would be on the card or could.
Court jester, are you not infotained? Stop it.
He made no mention of the data.
Not what he said to you, but given your expertise, did it ever dawn on you the significance or importance of this SD card that was sitting in plain sight? Objection.
Sustained, you can ask it differently.
Did it ever dawn on you that Mr. Burgess was recovering this information left behind, that there was something important or significant about it?
At the time, I thought it was a possibility. If you reference the initial work, a number of different memory components were identified in this infotainment. There isn't a singular memory chip.
Oh.
So if we're looking for data, it could be in any of them. So we found a new source of data storage, and there could be something there. There could be nothing there. It was unknown to me.
But it turned out there was.
There was.
Now, when you were watching Mr. Burgess work as an expert, if you felt like there was something inappropriate,
See you later, Summer. And yes, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Attorney Mark Betterow coming to Kim's house.
or he had some great oversight, you could write a report about that, couldn't you?
I could.
Did you ever write any
Sorry,
report?
I'm
in
eating a
this case?
muffin.
No.
So you never wrote a
Sorry.
report for your preparation of coming in and your data in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Correct.
You never wrote a report regarding any of your observations of Mr. Burgess.
Correct.
You said that he didn't say anything. He spoke to you quite a bit during the process, didn't he?
He did.
He showed you what he was doing.
He did.
He explained to you what he was doing.
He explained the process. I think you had asked me earlier about whether he explained the data, and he didn't.
He demonstrated great proficiency, wouldn't you say?
No.
He ended up with a successful acquisition of the card at the end of the process.
When you are considering all your equations, did you consider the timing information taken from the SD card that Mr. Burgess found regarding power on and power off of that car?
Yes, to the extent that he considered it in his own report. Again, I'm referencing his report.
But how about you? You're coming in here giving an opinion saying what's better or best practice or right. How about you? Did you consider, you personally, the one who's giving the opinions, did you consider the significance of the power on, power off data as it relates to all these times?
Yes.
Yes, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Oh, are
I
you
considered it. If that's the
sure?
question is, did I consider it? I considered it.
Did you do any study yourself?
No.
Now, we agree, or you agree, that there are variances between different devices.
Yes.
So a Lexus clock that comes from the infotainment system is very common that it would be different than a different device like an iPhone.
Specifically, this Lexus, I don't know if we can make the statement that it's common or not, because again, this is the only time that I know of that this specific data has been analyzed. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Did you say on direct examination that variances between devices are common?
Variance between devices are common.
In a variance of 45 seconds, that wouldn't be remarkable on
No.
different devices. It's common in the industry.
Correct.
And in your business, that's an accepted amount.
I'm not sure what you mean by accepted. The amounts are what they are, and we have to correct for them. I've done analyses of clocks that are anywhere from completely correct, 1 second off. I've done analyses of clocks that are 25 years apart. So it's a
Data is data, right? There's nothing that is like a commonly accepted. It is what it is. Oh, engineering brain. Occipital boners, if you will.
wide range of
I
possibilities.
understand your point.
Yeah.
If you see as an analyst a 45-second variance or 30-second variance, that wouldn't shock you, would it?
No amount of variance would shock me, is the answer.
I want to ask you questions and go through your PowerPoint. And I want to ask you your specific opinions and how you arrived at certain claims that you've made.
Sure.
Okay. If we could put up Mr. DiSogra's new PowerPoint, 52525.
Wait, did he do that?
Another event is more coordinated than if you take it from different spots, isn't it?
That could be a scenario where then you wouldn't use it, right? Like I said, it's not the only way, but it's the default way.
I don't disrespect your method, but there are other ways to do it that are just as legitimate as the trigger mark.
Absolutely. And that's why I didn't change the convention here. I used their convention.
So Hank Brennan then tries to attack his credibility of the way in which he is calculating, which makes sense to me. Again, I would express absolutely to you, babes, if Manshan's way made more sense to me, but Mr. DiSogra's does. So he takes the time from the trigger, right? And he calls that, like, remember when AJ did the clap? And that's 0. And then you only do the last half of it instead of trying to do the 5 seconds before and the 5 seconds after, because you have more of a like margin of error, right? Instead of saying when the trigger actually trips and turns on, and then you're counting it to the last 5 seconds, that is reducing your window of error in my brain. But he still used everything that Manshan and Mr. Burge, Manshan and Mr. Burge are the same, okay? And Dr. Welcher.
I'm not suggesting that Mr. Burgess would be misleading by choosing the endpoint when he pronounced that's exactly the point he was considering, are you?
No.
And so the word cherry picking, you're not saying he was cherry picking, are you?
No one said.
I don't remember the context in which I used the word.
He didn't say cherry picking. Okay. Now, now we're lunch breaking. Let's have a dance party. Are you prepared? Hit him with those vibes. Love it. Thanks, Court TV. Okay. Now we're going to all the way to the end, 6 hours, and we will talk all the shit. Boom. On your mark, get set. Woo.
That timestamp by Mr. Burgess, right?
More detailed is, yes, that's correct.
And do you know why he did a more detailed analysis of this? Why it wasn't in the original PowerPoint?
No, I don't.
Well, you said that variances are generally accepted in the community, right?
Yes.
But then you wrote a report suggesting numbers and additions, and you submitted that report as part of the basis of your testimony, right?
I only submitted a PowerPoint. I have no report.
PowerPoint. And after you submitted the PowerPoint, isn't it fair to say Mr. Burgess then analyzed this data to be more specific after you introduced your PowerPoint?
Yes.
So can you guess why he went through a more detailed analysis?
No.
Sustain. Strike it.
In the final exhibit?
By this time, our sweet Matthew DiSogra was sitting there thinking to himself, Jesus, take the wheel. He was looking in his pockets for Tiny Mary, Tiny Jesus to get him through the remainder of the day. He said at least 3 Hail Marys from that seated position, and he thought to himself, patience is a virtue. It is frowned upon to smack a hoe in a public building.
Let's go back to the data. You said that Mr. Burgess had an 8-second range, 21 to 29 seconds, remember?
Yes.
That's what I
And you were
said.
suggesting that somehow there was some uncertainty. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Were you guessing about his state of mind, whether he was certain or not? Do you know why he gave an 8-second range?
Objection.
So ask it differently, Mr.
Okay. You suggested the reason why there's an 8-second range is that Mr. Burgess was uncertain. Remember saying that to this jury?
Not in those exact words, but that's what uncertainty is. Uncertainty is a range. If we don't know a specific value, we put a range around it. That's uncertainty. That's a
This data from the green, would you agree it indicates the beginning of the 3-point turn, and then the orange at the end of the car is already in motion at 11.2 miles per hour? Objection.
I'm going to allow it. Do you agree with that?
I see speed values there. I see some headings. I can't convert GPS in my head, so I don't know.
You could have analyzed this data yourself, right? Before you came and gave an opinion.
I could have.
But you didn't.
I did not.
Do you have any reason to test the accuracy of this data that's converted? That objection.
I'm going to allow that.
No.
And so by giving the range of 8 seconds, you talk about looking at different values to be fair, wide range, right? Even though this analysis depends on the end of the 3-point term, would you agree it's kind of forgiving to give that 8-second range to give the benefit of the doubt by starting at the beginning of the 3-point term all the way to the end of it rather than just giving the end point?
As to that form, ask it differently, Mr. Brewer.
Does the
Oh, he's an
8-second range
angel. He's an
provided by
angel.
Mr. Burgess coincide with the data and the 8-second range between the green and the orange?
That's where he comes up with the 8-second range, correct?
And so if aperture's position is the matching times at the end of the event, like going back to the beginning, isn't that even more forgiving than the 8-second projection?
I'm going to allow it.
Yeah, I would call it a conservative approach to use a range of values.
The opposite of cherry picking, right?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, Hank, calm the fuck down. Okay. Take a minute, take a step back, take a breath, babe. Okay. Because your funky cold Medina is showing. All right. This is not a combative expert. This is not Attorney Alessi fighting for his life with a narcissistic, just a billy goat gruff of an individual in Dr. Welcher. Okay. He was just anything that he could butt heads on, he did. Anywhere he could expand, he did. And this expert gets up and he's like, yes, no, sure. Okay. If you're saying that this infotainment calls were not actually connected to the infotainment center in which I got from your motherfucking expert's report, then take out those 3 variables. Because at 25 out of 30 of his scientific, variable data points showed that Officer John O'Keefe would have had the locked event post the end of event 1162-2. Now, again, babes, this is so in the weeds for many people. And unless maybe you are an engineer or you are someone who has an analytical brain like this, because I don't. Oh, I am as neurospicy as they come. I know I'm a path taker. Okay. I am veering off, very sharp turns. And then I somehow make a loop de loop, okay, and find our way back to the fucking point. But these humans, it will be a very specific subset of the jury that thinks any of this shit makes sense to them, I think. So then where will they have to go back? To the investigation and to the medical testimony. Oh, just saying.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of forensic data certainty about whether text stream data provides data reflecting whether a collision actually occurred?
No.
In your opinion, to a reasonable degree of...
And that's wild. Because I have other experts that say that they do have the pre-collision trigger. I know that it doesn't say like collision, but you do have a pre-collision trigger. And that was not alerted in KarenRead's Lexus.
forensic certainty is the text stream data would not reflect the collision, correct?
That's not what I said. I don't have an opinion.
And you know that there can be collisions or touching between vehicle, and it's not going to appear on the text stream data. You know that, right?
It's possible.
It's possible. Did you know that the defendant's vehicle at 5:07 a.m. on January 29, 2022 bumped into a different car?
Yes.
Do you see that reflected on the text stream data?
I'm thinking back to when I reviewed the raw text stream data, and I don't remember seeing an event from that.
I can't really
I
hear
don't
you.
remember seeing an event from that time in the text stream data.
Well, you don't
Well. Again, at the end of this day, 6 hours in, all right, this expert is always using his brain, not referring to reports unless asked by whom? Hank Brennan. He doesn't have his calculadora. He does not have his laptop. He is not a walk-in asshole. And he is saying and answering things 100% accurate, in my opinion, and not fighting everything to only work with what the defense said, babes. He said things and said, well, yeah, it does make sense to use the closest time and the closest event from the incident than it did to use the later text messages to tether the event. So he confirmed that the Commonwealth using the alleged 3-point turn was the best option. At this point, do you think the jury remembers any of that? No. Because Hank is being a skank. Oh.
remember seeing it. It's not there, is it?
I don't think it is. I don't remember seeing it. I don't think there's one.
You're not.
I was going to finish and say I don't have all of the events committed to memory. There's
You're-
19 of them.
I'm sorry.
There's 19 events. I don't have them all committed to memory.
You're not testifying or offering an opinion that there was no collision with this car that night, are you?
No.
Because if you were implying that or suggesting that or
What
insinuating
is
that,
happening?
that would be misleading, wouldn't it?
No, and we're not going to say he's misleading because he's amazing. All right, let's go to Otto. What are we doing? Stay with me,
No.
internet.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
You were asked a number of questions.
Yes.
You were asked a number of questions a few minutes ago by
By Mr. Burgess. Yeah, it felt that way, right? Yeah, good job, Alan.
by Mr. Brennan concerning your expertise. I'm just going to grab a pen.
He deserved that water more than anything in his entire life. He deserved that water.
Specifically, you were asked about your expertise regarding mobile data devices. Mobile devices and their data, correct?
Yes.
And were you being truthful when you indicated that you were not an expert in
Yes.
that field? Were you being truthful when you indicated that you have a certain expertise in EDR data?
Yes.
Were you being truthful when you indicated that you did review Mr. Burgess's data and Mr. Welcher's data as reflected in their reports and PowerPoints?
Yes.
Were you being truthful about your credentials?
Oh,
Yes. Have you ever lied about your credentials?
No.
You hold a bachelor's degree
Yes.
and you hold a master's degree.
I do.
You ever lied to anybody about that?
No.
Oh, and that pregnant pause got at least 3 jury members pregnant, okay? They are with child now. What a pause. Because so much was made out of Manshann's education, training, and experience, and the fact that he misrepresented himself and the company of Aperture in and around all of their testing because he had submitted these resumes that were not accurately depicting who and what he really was. Again, we're not shaming an associate's degree, just tell the truth.
Mr. DiSogra, what is the only reason you amended your PowerPoint presentation from its original version to the one that you most recently amended it to?
to include the additional analysis and data points from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report,
So-
the May 8th report.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
May 8th report.
So you amended yours because he amended his.
Correct.
You were asked just a second ago about all the text stream events that you noted on Ms. Reed's SUV, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan asked you about a specific text stream event at or around 5:07 in the morning, and whether you had something like that committed to memory, correct?
Yes.
You said, I don't have them all committed to memory, right?
I don't.
What did you say after that? Because there's how many?
It was 19 events prior to 1162-2, 19 other events.
How about after 1162?
There were a number after 1162-2. I don't have the exact count in my head.
How about after 1162, just on January 29th, going into January 30th?
There were other events.
How many?
I don't recall the exact number.
Does 11 sound right?
It sounds plausible. I recall.
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry, babes. I want you to riddle me that. Bitch. Bitches. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, what in the actual fuck? So you're telling me right now, straight-faced, why is this the first time I'm ever hearing that there were additional trigger events after the 1162, which is not -1 and 2, it's just 1162 in text stream. That is the Aperture's depiction of it. But this is wild. There was 11 additional on January 29th going into January 30th. And then we're going to watch Mr. DiSogra. Sorry, babe. I didn't do that while you were. Oh, and you're always closing your eyes. Sorry, babe. Oh, I can't read wrong. Okay, it's happening. So listen, then he goes, I'm going to have to count them. So I know, all right, that this is more than 20. It has to be, right? Because he's not going to say, oh, I need to, use my fingers to count. He's a fucking engineer. He would have taken it if it was 20 or, you know what I mean? Like if there was a reasonable amount, he would have said it. But he says there are many. Now, KarenRead's Lexus vehicle is out of her possession physically on January 29th, 2022 at 4:00 in the afternoon. On your mark, get set, go fuck yourself, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You absolutely scuzz bucket motherfuckers. You are hiding things, and you always have. It is completely unbelievable and inappropriate that you would not mention that, but as usual, you hide the ball. Pardon me, pardon my French. I apologize to Tiny Mary, Tiny Jesus, and any non-swearers in the chat.
Seeing a number of events after.
Would it refresh your recollection? Look at a chart.
It would.
Let's let our boy count.
Total after 1162-2.
Only on the 29th.
There aren't date stamps on these because this chart is the raw text stream data, which doesn't have timestamps.
Safe to say, there are many, right?
Yes.
Mary, how much?
Yes.
And again, this goes back to a question that you were asked on Mr. Brennan. I want to follow up on, in no instance were any of those related to a collision, to your knowledge, correct?
Objection.
Sustain.
Oh.
Were any of those that you reviewed at any time, the lifetime of the vehicle, related to a collision?
None of them were triggered by a collision.
Thank you. I want to ask you a hypothetical, if I could, based on questioning by Mr. Brennan surrounding the 12/32/09 lock event. Do you remember him asking you about those questions, about that event?
Yes.
It is completely inappropriate, Meatball Morrissey, Sketty Stain, to say Hanky messed in his Depends and everyone could smell his stinkies. It was at this point that he was given an Ensure and was tucked in to bed by his caretaker, Lally. He was given his binky and a stuffed harmonica. Funny story that you mentioned that, because I believe that Adam Lally still is given the nectar of life, okay, from the teat of one Judge Beverly Cannoni. So caretaker's caretaker takes care of him. Oh.
your analysis was based on the time span. Let me rephrase that. Was your analysis based on Mr. Burgess's and Mr. Welcher's analyses together of a span of time between the 1162-2 text stream event or trigger event and the
Thank you
lock
for
event
becoming
of
members, Loveys.
3209?
Objection.
So the question is,
Oh, Val, you went from a non-consensual member to a consensual member. Oh, it's one of my best friends from out of town. Very appreciative. You don't have to stay here. It's a wild world.
is that what he's considering?
Correct. In other words, was he basing his opinion or analysis on that time frame, at least in part?
So I'll let
Thank
that
you,
question
Paula.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that Chloe?
If you were told that there was
Oh,
another
okay.
interaction phone event on John O'Keefe's phone at 12:32:16 in the form of steps taken, 36 steps over the course of 83 feet, would that change your analysis or opinion in any way?
Objection.
I'll allow that in that form.
Yes.
In what way?
If the phone event moves from 12:32:09 to 12:32:16,
12:32.
then of the 30 possibilities I had in the chart, all of them would become positive. That would mean that that interaction occurs after the end of the vehicle event every single time. Instead of, it was 25 for 30 in the original analysis, the hypothetical would change it to 30 for 30.
If there was steps taken after the lock event, then that would equal 30 out of 30 times in the scenarios in which this engineer ran based on all of the expert data and calculations from from the Commonwealth's own experts would result in all of it happening after Officer John O'Keefe was allegedly struck by the Lexus. Get out of here. And I hope that stuck with the jury.
All of them, all 30 of them. would
Okay, and now we're just going to go
about
here.
his analysis concerning the size of the data set collected based on bits versus bytes.
He was incorrect.
Explain that to the jurors very briefly.
These are just different units. A bit is a different size than a byte. And so if a size for something is listed in,
Size matters, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, that's what we say.
You can pull that down. What was your entire analysis predicated on? What was it based on? The foundation of it. As you explained your analysis to this jury during the course of the day.
the testing by Aperture and the collective reports and PowerPoint presentations by Aperture. That would be an initial report by Mr. Burgess, an initial PowerPoint by Dr. Welcher, and a supplemental report by Mr. Burgess.
Did you change any of their data?
No.
Did you change any of their analyses?
No.
Did you explain their analyses?
Yes.
Sustained, ask it differently.
Sure. What were you trying to do in terms of your presentation, in your PowerPoint, and your presentation to the jury?
There were a number of different methodologies presented across all of those reports and PowerPoints, and sort of all in different places. So my goal was to bring all of them into one place so we could look at the totality of the data.
Oh,
You were asked whether the genesis of your analysis relies on knowing the source of the calls, correct? Remember being asked that by Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
The actual genesis of your entire opinion is based on
and now here is the finish him moment by Alan Jackson.
Mr. Burgess's and Mr. Welcher's analyses, correct?
That's correct.
You were also asked why you believed Mr. Burgess did a quote unquote more detailed report in May versus January of 2025. Remember being asked that just a few minutes ago?
Yes.
When you presented your analysis, your math, based on Mr. Burgess's January 2025 report, how many of the scenarios indicated based on his data and his analysis that the lock event occurred after the text event?
All of them.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, Mr. DiSogra, this demonstrates the danger or the difficulty.
Hold on. Start.
It's cross-examination.
And then they had a little, I'm sorry. Did we just hear in the shadows of the courtroom, Attorney Alan Jackson and Attorney Brennan have words? Okay. He says, this isn't a speech. And then Brennan goes, this is a cross-examination. Clutch our pearls, clench our butts. Mr. DiSogra just sitting there like, fuck. Again, please make this stop. I hate it here. Send me home. Okay? And Judge Cannoni is the mother. She is who? She is this. And she did a decent job. I'll give her that because sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes we say, oh, Judge Cannoni, again, you're not calling balls and strikes. Why is that? But in this specific instance, she makes a good call.
Start. Go ahead, Mr.
This demonstrates the difficulty in giving opinions when you don't actually study the data itself. Isn't that fair to say?
What are you referring to with this?
Well, you're giving opinions, but you can't verify any of the data because you're not relying on your study of the data, are you?
Hank Brennan lost everything at the end of yesterday. When you're questioning this expert that is from the defense who only used the data from your experts, what are we doing? Have you lost the plot, my friend? Like, what? Wait, so are you saying that he's interpreting data wrong that your experts gave us?
I'm relying on expert reports.
You're criticizing somebody's report, but you yourself can't defend data that you haven't actually analyzed and broken down yourself.
I don't think that's true.
When you're looking at, when you're looking at someone's report, you're guessing as to what they thought or presumed if you haven't spoken to them. Fair?
I would say I'm reading the words that are in front of me and interpreting them for what they say.
When someone plugs their iPhone into a car,
I'm reading the words and what they say. Stop. Oh, you sly fox. I love a professional go fuck yourself, okay? A scoobity beep bop right in the face of Attorney Brennan.
after it turns on, and the car reads data that's on the iPhone, that data then resides itself or resides on the implementation system, correct?
There's a transfer of data. Yes.
And so unless you actually do the study yourself, you had no way of knowing if that information, although on the iPhone, on the implementation system, you had no idea whether it was from an iPhone or from the implementation. Fair?
That's right. I don't think that's.
And so when you don't actually do the work yourself, and you just presume or you guess, you could get it wrong, couldn't you?
If I had guessed, yes, but I didn't guess. I used the data in the reports and I referenced the testing that Aperture did. So I did not make a guess.
I didn't guess, babe.
You're telling me right now, with a reasonable degree of data certainty, that information is based on the input payment clock. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
You don't know. But if you actually did the analysis yourself rather than just Monday morning quarterback and somebody's report,
So I'm going to strike it, ask it differently,
if
Mr.
you
Mayor.
actually did the analysis yourself, you wouldn't have to make a presumption that you were wrong, correct?
I don't think the analysis was possible in this case because the testing wasn't done in this case.
You don't know if the testing was done or not. You didn't do the testing.
So I need to hear the question.
You don't know if the testing was done or not. Did
I know it's in the reports. The testing wasn't in the reports.
you read Jessica Hyde's report?
No.
Did you read Ian Wood's report?
No.
You don't know.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a fudging minute. Because the reports of Aperture were done before Ian Whiffen and Jessica Hyde's reports were done. And then you did what? Combined them all together. And you did it after the lock event was noted in court during trial number 2 that Ian Whiffen testified on the stand that the lock event happened after, and that is what prompted, my friends, Aperture to go back and change their analyses. So, are you saying that because Ian Whiffen and Jessica Hyde did independent studies on completely different topics, that this expert should have reviewed everything if it wasn't reviewed by your own expert in crash reconstruction? Stop it. Stop it. Because you know what? This is feeling very, very similar to.
Well, what happens when I spread my load out, when I lay on my bed like this?
Okay, Hank, don't.
I don't.
I'm going to let that stand. Next.
I do not, sir.
And so if you're wrong, your assumptions and product are then wrong.
Part of my conclusions would change. I wouldn't agree that I'm wholesale wrong.
Well, as a scientist, if they're not accurate, that would be wrong, wouldn't it?
That might be a nuanced answer.
I'm sorry?
I said that might be a nuanced answer. Frankly, I'm not sure how to give you a good answer to that
If
question.
you have the wrong data when you're doing your analysis, then the final analysis is going to be wrong. If you have using the wrong data, it's that simple.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to be a scientist to figure that out.
Yes. That's,
Okay. If we can have Mr. Welcher's 33.
Oh, Lola, this one's for you. Oh, Hank
Open it
Brennan,
up, please.
I got something in my pocket for you. And it's
You were asked
right
about
there.
whether the window is within
Don't spend it
the
all in
time
one
frame
place.
of 12/32/09, the last user interaction with the phone. When you look at this data, go to the top, please. You see on vehicle speed, the car is moving. You see that? Could you enlarge that a little bit, please? The beginning of that data capture, the car's already moving, correct?
I see vehicle speeds right in those first couple of lines. Yes.
Yes?
Yes, I see
Yes.
vehicle speed.
If you go to the bottom, at the end, the car is still moving. Yes?
I see vehicle speeds there as well.
2361. That
Okay. Thank you, Hank. And you didn't need to be so aggressive. But yes, the vehicle was moving at the start, then it is moving at the end. But this has never made sense. Because if, in fact, Brian Higgins' Jeep was parked at the mailbox at 34 Fairview, and Jennifer McCabe put Karen Read's Lexus vehicle hugged to the curb right next to the flagpole with eyewitnesses, although Judson B. Welcher could not say where the vehicle was located on the fucking road, then we know that if Karen Read's vehicle got up to 24.23 miles per hour, it would have continued to move, right? For how long? Or there would have been another trigger for a rapid braking, which would have been at greater than 30%, because she accelerated at greater than 30%. The bitch would have needed to brake. If not, but to not run into another vehicle, lose control, spin out in a thin layer of snow, a thin coating of snow. This is insane to me. Right? Oh, sorry, babes. Oh. Now let us just say goodbye to him because he is adorable. We're going to say goodbye.
if we could have Mr. Welcher.
No, let's not. Where was the end? 6:36. Oh, son of a gun. I just wanted to bid him adieu.
To 16. Do you know what John O'Keefe was doing in that 4-second period?
No.
Do you know if he was walking?
Oh,
Do you know if he was crawling?
No.
Do you know if he was falling?
No.
You don't know.
I do not know.
well, if Officer John O'Keefe was crawling, then wouldn't he have had alleged grass stains on his knees? If he had grass stains on his bottom from frozen murder ground. Still doesn't make sense, but I digress.
Okay.
12/32/16. It's just that Mr. O'Keefe's phone was moving with respect to it.
I didn't review the phone data, so I don't know.
Did you review anything to indicate that steps were taken over the course of 8 years?
Objection.
So that's sustained.
You were asked just a second ago. What about the data? What's wrong? Then you'd be wrong, correct?
Generally, yes.
Garbage in, garbage out. Basic scientific postulate, correct?
Generally, yes.
You're relying on whose data?
Mr. Burgess's data and Dr. Welcher's data.
Oh, there it is.
All right, Mr. DiSogra, you are all set, sir. So you can step down. I'm going to seek counsel.
And that was the last words, babes, that the jury heard from Mr. DiSogra was whose information did you base everything upon? Because Hank Brennan made good points and then completely lost his shit and harped on the fact that if this expert witness has wrong data, then his data is like his conclusions are incorrect. But he didn't do his own research. He didn't do his own experiments. This isn't like going ARCA versus Aperture. This is strictly someone who was a numbers guy. Okay? He's the forensic accountant. He is, oh gosh, what was that show? Oh, it was such a good show. I'm trying to think. He was I think he was a drug dealer in Appalachia. I'm trying to think of it, but it was really good. You know what I'm saying? Be the accountant, you know? Okay, so he's an angel face. Then we had a moment that I clutched my pearls, clenched my butt. We found a guy. There's a guy. And he's one of it's him. Here he is. OJP, now you know me. Also cute for being a friend of Chip Proctor. I am holding that against you, okay? But Wood, I don't know. You know, I was like, oh. Anywho, he was on the text chain with Michael Proctor and his 9 best friends from first grade. When I made that up last trial, everyone thought it was funny, but it's actually true. They went to literal elementary school together. Okay. We thought it was all high school friends, but it may or may not have been his 9 best friends from first grade. Shut the fuck up. Okay. So he gets summoned. Okay. He didn't come here on his own free will. All right. He is summoned and he goes, sits down and has a moment where he confirms that everything that is in these text messages from January 29th to February 2nd is his friends. He's like, yep, I know all these phone numbers and I can attest to that. He only responded one time out of all of the text messages and he doesn't have a recollection. But this is now a battle between the defense team and the Commonwealth of who is calling Michael Proctor. And we're playing a game of chicken right now. So let's hear my Mr. Unetti as the largest bowl of spaghetti talk to us after we get a couple minutes of this, sir. Oh, and he looks through every single page. God bless him.
Typing of text messages. You didn't appear to be too active on this thread. Is that correct?
Not from what I see here.
Did you see one entry that you actually did text?
Yes, one.
Okay, and I think these page numbers, they're all numbered. Could you direct us to the page where you actually chimed in? And if I suggested to you, it might be 4 from the end. And you don't have to read the actual text, sir. I just want to.
Sure. I'm just trying to locate it. Yes, I see it.
Okay, and the time of that, a date and time of that text as it's reflected on this document?
February 2nd, 2022, 12:38 p.m.
Oh,
Okay. And what you
I
type,
have a different copy.
oh, I'm sorry. It's for the record, it's on page.
What's the
Oh.
page?
And for the record, reading what.
P.S. for the record, babes, if you don't remember, KarenRead was arraigned at Stoughton District Court on February 2nd, that day that he responded, okay? And she was arraigned at 9 a.m. Okay, so we remember this. Why? Because we've been watching this for a long time and we've watched it together. But I was thinking, oh, was there other things that were said on February 2nd after Karen had been arraigned that very morning? Just saying.
Is typed there. Does that sound consistent with something you might chime in a text message, a text chain of this sort?
I mean, it could be. I have no memory of actually typing it, but
Sure.
that's not something. I mean, it could have been something that I would say. Yeah.
At the very last line of that text, do you mention somebody's nickname?
Yes.
And what nickname is that?
Chip.
And whom
And-
do you know as Chip?
Michael Proctor.
Yeah, we all know him. Who is he? Right behind me. Okay, there he is. His bag of tricks, his bag of tail light. Okay. And what do we do in the event of an emergency situation where we are meeting one of his best friends from first grade? You know what to do. It's time. We're going to punch a Proctor. On your mark, get set, punch a Proctor. Freak.
Now, going back to the first page, there are a number of other phone numbers there. Have you checked your phone prior to taking the stand today to match those phone numbers with other friends of yours?
Yes.
And if you could, and hopefully you remember.
We don't do the whole name. We don't do the first names because Judge Cannoni is like, illegal. And that makes sense because you don't need to have all of that, right? All he needs to do is confirm the last 2 digits of each of the phone numbers. Then he has his attorney here. His attorney will be back on Monday morning. Jesus, take the wheel. Be with me. God, forgive me, because I need to know what's said. But let's get into the argument. And Judge Cannoni is like, you need to present it all. And she says this to David Yannetti.
So, Your Honor, with regard, I assume we're just dealing with authenticity at this point?
No, we're dealing with both. You're the proponent of the testimony. So let's deal with both.
Okay, all right. So regarding authenticity, Your Honor, there are several ways that are either independent or connected with each other by which or through which a party can authenticate text messages. The majority of the case law out there are defendants having appealed judges' decisions to admit text messages offered by the Commonwealth, and the majority of the case law that exists affirm judges' allowance of text messages into evidence. The Commonwealth filed a memorandum in opposition.
Oh, so let's, we love Attorney Yannetti, but we want to get to him talking all the shit. When they refer to the case law, what they're going to say is that the petty paralegal who is sitting right next to that tiny Victorian ill child, AKA the appellate attorney. Here's our petty paralegal. You know, she completed the case law. She put it into a system and she was like, mass law with text messages, pulled out these 4 that are like completely non-related, that one is like a consciousness of guilt. One is possession and talking about someone having a gun and doing a search warrant. And we're like, what? But Attorney Yannetti says that because this young man, this friend of Proctor's, he had a like a code to get into his phone, like all of us do, right? That if you use biometrics or a code to get in, then that is proving your authenticity of it. And he said he had it for years, and he was able to identify every single mother trucker in the group chat. Note to self, don't be on group chats with questionable humans, you know? Oh.
This opposition, Your Honor, they state what appear to be rock solid black and white legal principles, but when you scratch below the surface and you actually read the case stands for nothing in terms of what they've represented it to be. They stated that in Welch, the court must find that each and every communication was authored by the individual member of the group. That's just plain false. The case doesn't say that at all. It's nowhere in that case. And in fact, the messages were let in, again, because of the circumstances and the content of the messages. Como versus Raposa, another case that they cite. The defense sought to call a neighbor to testify that he had seen the victim alive.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Yannetti. We're just cruising. Because we've
On
got
evidence
Mr.
matching the
Bettero
defendant's DNA
at
from a
5.
national database. The Commonwealth cites 3 principles. It's almost like they're setting a standard down that the court is supposed to follow with 3 factors. But again, none of the 3 principles.
Okay, wait, let's get Hank up, and then we're going to listen to Attorney Yannetti's rebuttal because it's hilarious.
She's going to go down for this.
Oh.
We're going to pin it on the girl. We're going to make sure that there are some serious charges. She's effed. Those are what he says about, those are the statements he makes about KarenRead in the.
Now, are you fucking telling me that Attorney David Yannetti got up in front of this court and it was not corrected by Hank Brennan that KarenRead was said that we're pinning it on the girl? Okay, we're all done. We're all done here. There is no way that Attorney Yannetti would have said that. It not been, even though this is outside the jury's presence, it would have been stopped. If Trooper Michael Proctor wrote in his fucking texts, pardon my French, guys, I'm so sorry, but I get amped up. If he wrote in there, actually, yeah, we're pinning it on the girl, this is a wrap. We don't need anything else. That was always the overarching tone, right? But if in fact they found something that he's responding to, that he is answering, that he shows such egregious bias, lack of investigation, then it would have never been allowed. They would have never, they get up and they have, you know that Hank Brennan is incredibly theatrical. He plays it to the cameras. He didn't say shit. And that says everything, in my opinion.
The infancy of this investigation. And to the contrary, is anything going to happen to Brian Albert? Nope. He's a Boston cop too. These are all statements about Michael Proctor's state of mind. The prosecutor and I have been over the statements. I realize he's objecting.
So Hank Brennan is objecting to this, but they actually agree on everything but 3 parts. So I'm assuming that Judge Cannone has to let these in.
To the admission of these statements, I don't think he has a legal argument that passes muster to do that, but should the court allow them in, we're agreed on everything except for 3 entries, which I think we could deal with pretty quickly. And unless the court has questions, I'd rest on that.
No, but I'd appreciate a copy of whatever you've agreed upon.
Okay.
So it's been a long day for staff, so I don't need to sit here and go through each one. Just get me a copy of what you've agreed to.
Okay. So this is the only marked copy. I'm happy to hand it to the court.
And you can take care of it and email it in.
We'll do that. Thank you,
All
Ron.
right. So, Mr. Brennan, I'd like to hear you on admissibility. I haven't decided admissibility, and I'll hear you on authentication.
Hank's Just for Men hair care products had already really been working a double shift. Okay. He is sweating to the oldies. And you can see almost a pattern of sweat that is tinged in the color of dark brown. Hi, petty paralegal. That is not me, Loveys. That
On
is
the first
me
issue
adjacent.
of authenticity, this witness has no memory of any of the text messages. I think it's fair to conclude he's on the text message string. He recognizes the people on it, but there is no authenticity if he doesn't recognize them. The person that could best authenticate these text messages is Michael Proctor. This witness does nothing as far as identifying the individual text messages and whether they're reliable, whether there's been any additions, deletions, whether in substance this is part of the conversation. Notably, I think, according to the questioning by Attorney Yannetti, he's made one comment at the end of the string that really has nothing whatsoever to do with the text messages that are.
Babe, are you talking about the girl who is a blonde girl that looks like me but's not me? I don't know, but I call her an icon.
Issue. So authenticity, I don't believe this witness reaches that conclusion for them. Regarding admissibility, I do not dispute that in the right context, these text messages are admissible. If there is an investigator in a case that makes derogatory remarks about an accused, I can't say that doesn't go to bias, nor do I reject the idea that it shows an unfairness or a motivation. But really, you need to put that in context. And I think Attorney Annetti highlighted that. He says that this is not hearsay. It's how he thought, or whether it affected a particular part of the investigation. It may have, it may not have. Even if he denies that it affected his investigation, it's still an appropriate question to ask just because that type of negative commentary, inappropriate commentary was made. But to explore the state of mind and put it in context, you need to ask the person that you're accusing of having the bias. Because
I'll allow it.
It did affect the bias. Perhaps the person was very biased and made decisions based on that animus. Or perhaps the person made negative comments but had nothing whatsoever to do with the investigation. It is surmised to say because these comments were made, a witness was not investigated, or there was some other amorphous, undefined ill that happened. That's the whole reason why the witness who made the comments should be confronted with the comments they made so the jury can fairly assess, is this relevant? Is it material? And what is the value of it?
But why? Why, Loveys? Why did the Commonwealth make the very horrible miscalculation to hide the truth of Michael Proctor? I was going to say Trooper, but he's no longer. He's a former disgraced. Why would they hide that? It doesn't make sense, because if you are playing this like a straight shooter, right? Like Adam Lally last year, Adam Lally got up in front of everybody, and as horrific as it was, went through every single text message of Michael Proctor's. Now, this is all before what? Before his Mass State Police, the board, and before he was terminated. So yes, I understand that the outcome has been 100% noted, and it looks very bad. But why are you? I feel like there's trickery afoot, and I'm pretty sure that the defense knows exactly what the fuck Hank Brennan is trying to pull, because they are defense attorneys. And so now we're in a stalemate. And I think it's ugly.
I am not opposed to the admission of bias against a witness, especially a police officer, but it should be against that witness because they need to have the opportunity to admit, deny, define, accept, and explain. By putting these messages in with sidestepping, calling Mr. Proctor, they are trying to gain the advantage of putting information in front of the jury that has no context, suggesting it has a value that has not been defined, and then, as Mr. Yannetti just did, making an argument that because the comment was merely made, that therefore there was a consequence, and specify a consequence where there's no factual basis to conclude. Because he made a derogatory comment, he didn't investigate or speak to a plow driver for a year and a half. That defeats the purpose of defining the value for which this is being admitted. I do have some issue that it's really not under the context of Bowden, because this doesn't have to do with the adequacy of a police investigation. It has to do with bias. And that purely is the state of mind of the person who made the comment. I would not get in the way of confronting the witness about their bias if they were called to the stand. But to put it in this way invites speculation, it invites manipulation, and it invites a party on either side to portray this in a way that is not factually viable. It will be distracting, confusing for the jury, and it could be unfair for either side, because it will lead to arguments about what it means without a factual basis. And so my position is, I don't necessarily disagree that it's relevant, but it should come through Michael Proctor. And if the defense wants the value, they should call Michael Proctor.
Okay. Mr. Yannetti, do you want to respond?
I know we're the hours late, Your Honor. I won't belabor the points.
And this is
I would
the
state
creme de la
very
creme.
as succinctly as I can, which is, yes, it goes to bias. but it also goes to the adequacy of the evaluation. The two concepts are intertwined. If you're biased or exhibit bias, the defense should be able to argue that the investigation was not adequate. I would note, Mr. Brennan is not sitting at defense counsel table in this case. We appreciate the offer to help us with strategy about which witness we should call, but that's solely the province of the defense to determine.
And this is why Attorney David Yannetti is the smartest and the prettiest and is our dimpled bowl of spaghetti. Thank you for allowing me to be a non-consensual intern for the last 2 years, Mr. Yannetti, because damn, it feels good to be a gangster. Okay? Are you shitting me? You just hit Hank Brennan with thanks, but no thanks. Okay? Oh, yeah. You don't tell me what to do. Obsessed.
Determine which witness we want to use to authenticate and admit text messages. That's our choice. And we should not be deprived of that choice because Mr. Brennan thinks there's a better witness that should have introduced the text messages. There is no rule. There's no best witness rule in this case. I believe my co-counsel has already made that argument in another circumstance. His arguments, Mr. Brennan's arguments, go to the weight, not the admissibility.
Amen.
He is fully entitled to cross-examine this witness about all of the points that he raises. And in conclusion, Your Honor,
I love him. I love this man. Okay. And when I tell you that he is my like Mount Rushmore of just a dream boat. Okay. Just a smooth talking dream boat, tall drink of water. Okay. Thirsty. I'm thirsty. You know what I'm saying? Cajun Butterfly, I am so thankful that you are here. You said you've been silently watching your channel for a few weeks now, but just let me say I'm addicted. I love your silliness and the commentary. I found a new family to recap on trials. You are my family. I am your family, and you are all my best friends from out of town. I'm so thankful for all of you. And Tammy, just kidding. Tammy with a Y. Says, I wish after Lucky's testimony on Monday, the defense would play the 911 call when JM asked, how long has he been out there? And she clearly says, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours. That explains so much. That is genius. That is genius because it's already in evidence. And we're not going to be able to, in an hour, give all the summation of all the shits, right? You got to hit all the big points and you have to hit all the reasonable doubt. And for Karen's sake, it needs to be a focus on manslaughter because 1 in 3 have never been proved. They never will be. But if the Commonwealth has a shot in hell, Loveys, it is going to come in the form of manslaughter, charge 2, or a lesser included. I truly and firmly believe that KarenRead is innocent of all charges and should be acquitted. But that is what the defense, I think, with all their training and experience, will just continue to harp home on. If Officer John O'Keefe wasn't struck by a vehicle, then you can't convict her of knowingly or unknowingly or drunken, reckless and wanless actions, right? On a public way if it didn't occur. Just my opinion. And what the fuck do I know? Nothing.
he complains that we have not called Michael Proctor. I think that's the whole impetus for this objection, so that we will call in a witness that they do not have confidence in to call themselves. It's unheard of in a murder case that you don't call
There's
the
me,
investigator.
not me.
That's what's happened in this case. We should not be forced to call Michael Proctor so that Mr. Brennan can then cross-examine him and lead him through basically his entire.
I hope that's me next week.
He is entitled to call Mr. Proctor in rebuttal. He has every right to call Mr. Proctor again. I would rest on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just the very last thing, there's Commonwealth's motion for.
And that is it, my loves. Look at, I'm right here. We have been blessed by the gods and by Saturdays are for the boys. Okay. We are having attorney Mark Betterow over 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what did he say in the text? He said, what time do you want to talk all the shit? Believe we're going to be talking all the shit. All right, lovies. I'll see you soon. 5 p.m. if you can make it. I'll make a thumbnail now. Bye, guys. Thank you for coming.